Hi there, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming.
Morning.
Hi.
Well, this morning I'd like to talk a little bit about time. I was reading the Christian Science Monitor, which I really love because it's unbiased. It really is fair to both sides of any situation, and oftentimes they have thought-provoking series. Right now they're doing a series on respect, and on March 1st they started one on time. I was very intrigued. I'm going to quote what they say about time. Everything that happens in your life, every experience, every interaction, even every thought is mediated by one thing: time. That's why the word time is the most frequently used noun in the English language. I was so fascinated with this, and I started thinking about what do we do in the arts to reflect time? And how many times have I listened to music and felt like time stopped? How many times have I gone to a concert and 2 hours went by and I went, wow, that time sure went fast? And then some of those times when I'm bogged down and life has a different perspective of time too, how life can suddenly go slowly when we're bogged down with one problem after another. So I was asking my artist friend yesterday, we had lunch, and I had to ask her, how do you do this? How do you deal with time as an artist? And Robin's here today, and I'd love her to introduce herself. She moved to Asheville from Laguna area in California, and we became friends, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. Time flies, maybe it's longer. I'd like to turn this over just for a few minutes to Robin. Would you like to introduce yourself with your artist name and so forth?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Wethe Altman is how I sign my paintings. Um, uh, and I really feel like my mother was the one that got me going in art. She seemed to like she would see things and there would be something deeper than just the visual. And she would get so on fire about even like the light coming through her glass of lemonade, or how a branch was bending on a tree and how the wind was moving it, just so visual. So I don't know, I felt like I was being inducted into a sacred society or something. And it was mostly around nature. So, but specifically about time, I've always thought of paintings as what they do is they freeze one moment in time. And I suppose, it's not just like a photograph as far as what I do goes. It's like you see the artist too, because the artist puts their interpretation on what they're seeing into it. And there's different kinds ideas, basic ideas of design that I learned that I think were interesting was when you look at something that's very vertically oriented, it gives you a sense of awe, like, grandeur, like tall trees or mountains, and you go up like this, and you go up and down, and it gives you a sense of reverence and awe. And then a horizontal design is more about a peacefulness. It's like how when you lay down, you're resting, and how our eyes are on two sides of our heads. So we tend to feel very peaceful looking at things that are horizontal. Um, and then as far as movement goes, and something a little bit more time oriented would be maybe a diagonal oriented design where things are leaning. It gives you that feeling of moving, like, like a bicycle rider when he's going around a corner and he's leaning way over, or trees blowing in the wind. And it gives you a sense of like kind of drama and all that. But basically what I love about art is it takes the moment. It takes like this, like an immediate moment, kind of freezes it. And what I hope art would do is help everybody see how precious and amazing one moment in time is. And and then realize when you go out into the world, every moment is like a piece of art, and it's got so much in it and so much beauty, and the idea would be to stay in the now rather than thinking about the next thing. And I'll just want to add one thing about music that I heard. I took a music theory class. It was just a brief class in music appreciation that I took at my college when I went back for a reunion. And that professor, and I mean, tell me if you agree, he came to the point at the end of the class where he said that the one aspect that's so appealing about music to people is that it gives them a sense of knowing what's coming, because music has kind of a natural rhythm. And I wouldn't say all music maybe is that, you know, because in jazz or something there might be unusual movements, but he said that one thing that makes people feel good in music is that sense of kind of knowing what's coming before it does, and it gives you a sense of not being afraid of the future. That was his point. Now that's all up for grabs. I don't know what anybody else would say about that, but I thought it was interesting. Is
I
there
love
anything else?
I
Did
love
I
the
miss
comment
anything?
on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To knowing what's coming, that's comforting. With musical compositions, we often I've often viewed a piece as a story. And I really enjoy when I'm listening to music at a concert, knowing where I am in the piece. Am I in the beginning? Am I in the development, the walk in the scary woods? Am I coming towards the end of it? And to me, that always feels like a really wonderful story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So knowing what's coming, I don't know if we always know exactly what's coming, but we know we're in the middle of something that's going to come to a conclusion. Today we are going to talk a little bit about sonata form and some of the parts, analyzing one of the pieces that Jared's playing today, the Mozart Sonata. So we'll talk a little bit about the form in there. I recently got interested in Einstein again. I've always been interested in Albert Einstein. In fact, a dear friend of mine, Victoria, back in New York City, gave me a picture of Albert Einstein playing the violin, and I kept it in my violin case for many, many years. She gave this picture to me to inspire and encourage me because before I had spent a good number of years feeling inadequate because I had a little learning disability, and I didn't talk till I was three. After I was three, about 3.5, and Einstein had the same problems. He had a learning disability. Also, didn't talk till he was 3.5, and he also played the violin. So this was my introduction to Albert Einstein. In speaking about his theory of relativity, Einstein stated, "It occurred to me by intuition, and music was the driving force behind that intuition. My discovery was the result of musical perception." I just love that. Recently, someone recommended a series on Hulu. It's called Genius. There's a whole series on Albert Einstein. I got very caught up in this. And there are many parts of his story that I was unaware of. This week, about 5, 6 days ago, I got a email from Sharon Rothstein. She's the organizer for a series of master classes. And if you'd like to perform or watch one of those master classes, you can email her at Sharon Rothstein at yahoo.com. SharonRothstein Stein@yahoo.com. I'd like to read part of the email I received from her. This is tied in with Albert Einstein. The person who so generously donated all those wonderful items to the Children's Chamber Music Education Fund is Judith Levine. Her husband, Jack Lindberg, died of COVID very recently. My good friend Jack was not only a wonderful cellist, but he was also an outstanding physician, photographer, lover of chamber music, and a wonderful friend to so many. He always had a smile on his face, and we laughed at so many things together. Jack and I played chamber music together on many occasions each winter when my husband and I traveled to Sarasota. Jack was a fascinating man who told me he actually played string quartets with Albert Einstein when they were both at Princeton together. Jack told me that it was indeed true that Professor Einstein had some trouble counting when they played Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven string quartets together at Albert Einstein's home. I found this very provocative, that Albert Einstein had some trouble counting when he was playing the violin and the quartets. And immediately I asked myself, why? And my theory is that he didn't practice counting out loud. And so perhaps he didn't really thoroughly know his rhythm and how to keep time within a group. So many people miss that step in working on rhythm of just going slow enough to count out loud. 3 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and off on the rest, so forth. Any comments on Einstein not being able to count when he was playing in a chamber music group?
But I wonder what Einstein had. Was it like what's that one?
It was a dyslexia. Wayne, do you have any stories about Einstein?
Yes, as you may know, we have a small collection of vintage photographs, and this is a picture by the photographer Lottie Jacoby of Einstein's music stand. It's not clear what the music is.
Well, it looks like a wire stand.
Here's the description on the back.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations, that's a neat thing to have.
Speaking of Einstein, we have I had a very good friend named Alex Langsdorff in Chicago, who was a nuclear physicist. He had worked on the Manhattan Project, and whenever they had parties at their house out in Schaumburg, there would be a gaggle of Nobel-winning nuclear physicists and scientists. And one day I was there, and I had made use of the bathroom in their bedroom, and there was a blackboard in the bedroom covered with all kinds of mathematical formulas. And I know that Alex had played chamber music a lot. And I said, well, why don't we get together and play some chamber music, maybe Mozart or something? And he said, well, he doesn't play chamber music anymore because, you know, it's just the same notes over and over and over again. It's not nearly as creative as mathematics.
Oh gosh.
I've often wondered, and I don't really know, but I've often wondered if maybe music has more rules to it than art. You know, I mean, what do you think?
That's true. There's a lot of mathematics, but I would think art also does with geometry and balance and so forth. I think all the arts have a certain amount of organization and math.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's move forward. I'd love to hear our piano pieces today. Jared, which one would you like to play first?
Oh, I think the Mozart should go first.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, is this K230, 283, right?
Well, I thought it was 285. No, just
Oh,
kidding.
that's right. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Yes, first movement.
First movement. All right, G major.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
That was amazing.
Wow.
That was
Thank you.
awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah. Beautiful. It was almost, I kept thinking of dancers. I kept seeing like, just like lightness and agility and I like the contrast of the deep, the dark, lower notes, with the higher notes and the
I'm
slowing
just
down and then the speeding up.
I'm just curious, who's outside with the beautiful tree behind?
Oh, that's me. We're camping, so
Nice.
Good to see you.
same here. This is great.
Okay, so Jared, I thought we might start with a few little house cleaning or a little bit of cleanup areas here. I I thought it was a really nice performance, and in the overall, I felt like I knew where you were at each point while you were playing it. Um, and the trills are really good. There's just a few things like throughout the whole piece, throughout the whole movement, that I think would make it sound a little bit better. This piece is full of appoggiaturas. The way I look at an appoggiatura is it's a chord or something that's on the beat, but it's a little bit discordant. Like, for example,
The development, you mean?
well,
ornaments?
these little bits, you know. Resolving there, but the dissonant, it comes in. It's a grace note that's actually on the beat. I think also in when we see those curved lines, and we don't get a whole lot of them. I've got the Henley next to me, but whenever we have those curved lines, we want to make sure that the second note is almost always a little bit softer. So that would be less. And then we elaborate, but here's the answer. And connect these bottom notes. Instead of that, it sounded a little bit vertical. Instead, more like that. Because that's a melody. Right hand, we just have that thing going on. And so that's the first theme, or the first subject. The next part is the episode. Some people call it the bridge. That's where we have. And I like to see that without the pedal until you get to the crescendo. Something like that. Oh, by the way, this modulates. It starts in C major, goes to G, and then to the dominant, to D major. And the rest, 1 and 2. 1 and off. 1 and off. Could we just do that first part, the first theme and the bridge or transition, and see if we can get a little bit more of the I call them drop taps. In those. And just done with a little bit of weight on your wrist. Good. Let's work on this part. Shaping that a little bit more. So you might have to do something with the wrist. You might have to move the wrist. Relax the wrist a little bit. Relax the wrist a little bit so that you can feel from the keys what you want it to sound like, and it can come into your body a little bit more. Just that one measure. upper and the bottom note. One more time. The C coming off. I'm hearing the C not connecting to the B.
That's because I'm using one for both of them. I should change.
Oh, don't do that. It's just 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5. See my fingers?
Now it feels like an exercise.
Otherwise, I'm hearing this. I'm hearing a pop there. This really has to be smooth. Yeah.
All right, I'll change the fingering.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And then when you're doing the bridge, a little direction, da 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 da, movement, moving forward, a diagonal line in art instead of a vertical thing. Okay, moving forward, not faster, but just a direction of movement rather than more of a vertical thing, which I'm hearing right now. Yeah, I like that better. Can you continue and go right up to the second theme? That's the 12th theme. And that's the end trill is this. 3, 2, 3, 1. You know, one way you can shape this a little bit too, a little bit more this way with your hand. It's connecting. Yeah. Close to the keys. Pedal down and up. I use a 1/4 on the F sharp octave. Pedal down and up. Da-da-da-dum, off. Let's do the octave. Yeah, that sounded a little bit more connected. And here, do a 4 on the F sharp. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yes, really good. Very nice. So that first part is the exposition. The next part, we have the theme, the second theme. And here, appoggiatura. So I would drop a little bit on those. Can we do those 4 bars right there? I think a little bit more. Can we do a little bit of that? Good. I would even almost think of it as an accent if you have to. These are appoggiaturas, so the first of the is louder than the second part. Bar 25. Even though the second of each of those groups is a longer note, it shouldn't have so much emphasis as I'm hearing right now. Something like that. Okay, good. Good. And then the next part is just the same thing, dressed up. So bring up the first of each group. Very nice. So there's an interesting thing that happens here where the second subject comes back in a little bit later in bar 45. Right there. That's the same material as we have. It's one step higher. Backing up a little bit at 38, 39, those appoggiatura is the same thing. Those same thing. Make sure the first of each time that comes in, to make sure it's stronger on the first note, like you're dropping onto the key a little bit. This part here, more of a swirling, more of a horizontal, if you can, almost like they're broken chords. Too vertical. A little bit more like that. It might help to go a little faster. Just a tad faster. There, that sounded better. That sounded better for sure. Yeah, and then so that one, you're just doing a straight trill. You're not coming in at the end with that, are you? Yeah. Well, my teacher Browning had me do, because this comes up again, he had me not do the underneath note. He just did. And then when it comes up late.
That's easier.
Yeah, well, it is, but don't hold your breath, because about 8 bars before the end, it happens again. So that one is, let's jump over there. That's at measure 110.
Yep.
This is the beginning of the coda. That's how you practice it. 2, 2, and now the triplet. And then the A with the B. So you practice it that way, but then when you perform it, if you practice it that way, then when you perform it, you can do a really fast trill there if you want. And then it'll be very, very graceful. But that's the little practice tip on that. And the development, we have the appoggiatura type of ornament. And this is going to modulate. To the G. So let's start the development, which starts at 54, and just do those first 4 measures. You want to try those again?
Sure.
Okay, good. I would make these a little shorter. 1, 2, 3, 1, off, off. 1, off, off. Like that a little bit more. Okay. Let's try it again. And let's try keeping the tempo a little bit more even. It sounds a little like we're bending time here. Can you try it again? and with the note values very, very strict. Now right there, Jared, you held that a really long time. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1. Can you come off on that? These, it's on the beat. So it's on the beat. So the grace note is a little itsy bitsy with a tiny paintbrush written note, but when we play it, it's supposed to be louder than the note that comes after it.
I think I know. I think I'm adding a beat in the second measure. Now I think I figured it out.
Do you have a friendly metronome handy? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I continue down to show that to you also. I would suggest doing that part with the metronome. It's a little bit unstable right now. I think this part is really the only part I think that you really could use a lot of practice on. Is the rest of it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The recap comes in at the 72, of course, and it's like the beginning. A minor. And then the C major. There. Before the recap, in the Henley it had. I liked it. It doesn't have a retard written in there at all, but I think it's kind of nice to hold back just a little bit. You're great at this, Jared. Just to hold back a little bit, like I just did before you go into the recapitulation part, the part that I just played.
Yeah, I thought I took a little time, or just a little, just to show that something else. We're going to something, something familiar.
Yes, yes, and I think that's really the only place you need to do it. You know, it's interesting. In the first time the second theme comes in, that's in the D major in the dominant, but in the recapitulation, we're starting to wind down and starting to come back home. And so this part's in the G major. We're going back into the G major, and with it, by the end of the next page, we're done. Still in G major. So there's not a whole lot of modulation in keys after we come back to the G major at that point. Did you have any questions or want to go over anything, Jared?
I haven't played a lot of classical sonatas like this, so it was kind of maybe my tempo improvisation was just trying to give it something that's not there.
No, I wouldn't do that in classical music to change the tempo quite so much there. It's a middle theme.
Yeah.
In the development. Well, I think that's good. I think that's good for now. I can't think of anything else at the moment. We should do some more of these.
Sure.
I think we should do some more in the classical. In general, it's more of a horizontal line we're looking for. we've been playing a lot of romantic pieces for the classes where you get to come down on the chords and the pedal sort of lets the chord go on while you're doing some other things. And this is so different. The technique is so much more different when you're playing here because we don't get to use the pedal too much. We shouldn't because it'll muddy it up. But we have to take those horizontal lines, we have to take them with our hands more and less of a vertical or coming down unless you're doing the drops. Drop, and those slow motion is drop, and this is a tap. It comes right from just a little bit above and comes right up. Not from the note, see my fingers on it, because that's what's going to happen when you're playing too fast. So that's a slow motion of how to execute all of these parts where you have just two notes with a curved line on top. I would say that's almost a rule. Should we move on to the Grieg?
Sure.
You know, these Grieg pieces are great. There were 66 of them in all, and this is the first one, and it was one of Grieg's favorite melodies. In fact, at the end of the series, I don't know if you knew this, but he repeats the theme and turns it into a waltz. Did you know that? It might be fun if you have the last one to come back with that sometime.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I like the first rendition better, but it is good, yeah.
And of course, you know that Grieg was Norwegian. He lived to be about 64 years old. He played on the 1892 Steinway, by the way. And his cousin, twice removed, was Glenn Gould.
I didn't know that.
Isn't that interesting? Very musical family. He lived from 1843 to 1907. And this is a very short, rather simple piece. And I'd love to hear how you sound in this one.
All right. Are you
Yeah.
ready?
Yes. Great, thank you. That's really pretty good, Jared. You got the notes really well. Let's work with it just a little bit today. All right, good. Jared, the first half of this, before you go into the end of the third line, before you go there, I would love for that moment to be the cookie. You know, the cookie that's cooking, and we don't know where it is, but we're very aware of it, and then we see it, we go towards it. By taking a retard in the seventh measure, I wouldn't do it. I would hold back a little bit. I would take that retard out. The other ones, if you do want to do a little rubato in there, I think it's going to support the length of that phrase.
You mean the cookie is in measure 12?
Yes. You know, not that it's going to be louder, but I would just love for everything to be a little bit more, a little bit calmer. And so that when we we go further down in the bass and we go up to G again, that's a bit of a moment. So the first half ends there. the second half is here. And it was sounding a little bit different, like we've arrived somewhere.
Yeah.
I would love to do it a little bit slower. The Mozart I would have liked faster, and this one a little bit slower.
All right,
Not
we'll
too much,
balance it out.
just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. Okay, all right. Some parts of that are getting better. I'm going to talk a little bit about the ending, relating back to our theme of timelessness. And the 3 bars before the end, that's the part you want to hang in there, and make sure you're counting 1 and 2 and oh, sorry, I missed that. And 2 and just let that die away. Yeah, that sounds better. That sounds better. There's a couple of places that I would suggest some echoes. Um, in measure 7 is an echo of 5. It's the same material. The 2 measures repeat themselves, except for the bass line is a little bit different. And then the same thing happens again where measure 9 and 11.
When you say echo, you mean the second time softer a little bit?
I like the rubato you put in also in the first half last time too. It was really beautiful. Let's do the whole piece again.
Okay.
Let's do the whole piece again. I loved that. I don't know what happened there. That was really beautiful. How did that feel on your end, Jared? Did it feel like, did that sit well with you as you played
Yeah,
it?
it felt very natural.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece.
It is, but you know, it's simple. It's a simple piece, but sometimes that's the most difficult. But that was really, really gorgeous.
Thank
I
you.
love that. So I'm curious, what was going on the first couple times you played it? What was happening, going on inside of you?
Hmm. I think I just, it's always a focus on trying to get the notes and to, you try and keep a lot of things in your head, the tempo, and I think once you get more comfortable, it's easier to express the music.
Well, you got comfortable very quickly today. Well, I really enjoyed that. That was just fantastic, Jared.
Well, thanks for letting me bring it today.
Sure, and this is recorded so you can reference it
Great.
and maybe mark your part on what you did. I very much liked it. I don't have anything else planned for us today. Naomi was going to do a demo of some bow technique. Since I promised it, I'll show you a little bit about it. And this is about the sounding point. The sounding point is the point where the bow hairs touch the string. It's a teeny tiny point, a millimeter, or maybe 2 or 3, maybe a centimeter and a half if we're using all the hair. Sometimes we're just using a tiny bit of hair, but wherever that point is on the string, that's the sounding point. We always want to have the right weight on the bow pressing down onto the string. We also have to be very conscious of the distance from the bridge, and then whether the bow is moving fast or slow. I can do something really nice here at a very slow tempo with my bow, but if I do it out here, this is what happens. So that's a quick demo about how awful these things can become. So in the upper half of the bow, the tendency for most people, and they call it the straight bow problem. That's what we're going for. What we see too much is this, or we go loop around trying to get the bow back into a parallel to bridge position. A beginning violin student, I have a tape there, and when I suggested this to him, it really helped him a lot with his bow. So you're in the middle, in the upper half of the bow, so I suggest to practice it like this. Pause, and we're going to do a little arc and to come back the same way. My students, sometimes I call it a train track. So it's like this. Stop. See, I went out with my bow and my elbows. I went like this, out while I was playing. And then I'm going to bring that elbow back in right away. And then the bow is parallel again to the middle. I'll do it again. Pause. I'm going to make an arc. And then I'm going to come back the same way I came in, directing it from my elbow. And pause again. And then continue the parallel bow to the middle. Anyway, it's a nice little trick. If you want it to sound good, then do your bow very slowly close to the bridge. Thank you everybody for coming. And thank you, Jared, for performing. Much appreciated.